Lewis. I think after an afternoon with us, you'll want to transfer permanently to this committee. It's a very friendly committee. I mean, obviously, there's not always consensus, but I think it's a very friendly committee, and we're fortunate for that. Now, before we get started, it was brought a point was brought last week that perhaps a Green Party member could withdraw, or I could, as chair, withdraw at the request of a Green Party member a Green Party amendment. I looked into the matter a little more, and in fact, my previous understanding that once a Green Party amendment has been sent to the clerk, it's deemed to be moved and therefore belongs to the committee, and therefore the chair cannot simply withdraw it. It has to be withdrawn by unanimous consent. My inquiries led to the following example from April 22nd at the Indigenous and Northern Affairs Committee, where Ms. Atwin says, I will withdraw it, meaning the amendment, since it has the same context as others. The chair says, okay, PV 7 is not brought forward. And the clerk says to the chair, Mr. Chair, if I may, PV 7 is deemed to have been moved, so it would require unanimous consent to withdraw it. That's my understanding. And then the chair says, do we have unanimous consent to withdraw? I see that we do. Thanks, Ms. Atwin. So I just wanted to sort of close the loop on that. And
sorry.
Yes, Ms. May.
Well, I appreciate the chair looking into it again. I've had different experiences with different committees, but I'm not questioning what's been determined. But I see Mr. Albus's hand is up too. I think I'd like to again put it forward. I'm not sure where we were exactly, but I think I still had about 7 or 8 amendments relating to the expert advisory body independence of the committee, where I was prepared to try to see that my amendments were no longer deemed put forward in favor of the Bloc Québécois amendments. Maybe we could try for unanimous consent again, but I don't know what Mr. Albus would think about that.
Okay, well, when we get to it, you can try. Yes, Mr. Albus.
Yeah, no, just based on this, I'm glad that MP May got a chance to respond, and she and I have communicated back and forth. I have a better understanding of what she was trying to do. Obviously, she best speaks for herself, but I seem to get the indication that she feels that the process from the very beginning on this particular clause by clause, and please don't take offense, Mr. Chair, has been steamrolled or compressed. And it's been very clear by members that they haven't been accepting of MP May's amendments, nor the Bloc, nor the Conservatives. And so it's becoming very apparent to me that she was just saying that she doesn't want to be participating in a process that she doesn't have faith that she's even going to receive fair hearing. Now, whether that's fair or not, Mr. Chair, I'll let members decide themselves. But I will make the motion that PV 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, and 33 be removed for consideration by unanimous consent. And I just hope that the MP for Saanich Gulf Islands takes this, that I appreciated her communications with me. I have great respect for her and her contributions into this process, as bad as it's been.
Okay, well, let me pause for a second. Mr. Albus, I'll get right.
Monsieur le Président, votre micro, est-ce que...
Chair, your microphone. Your microphone. Oh, sorry about that. I will get back to you in a few moments.
Okay, so it's unusual for usually it's the sponsor that does this, but if there's unanimous consent, we can.
Yeah, to clean it up, Mr. Chair, I'm perfectly happy to move it again,
Okay.
as I attempted last time. And I would just say, I appreciate Dan Albus speaking for me. Just to say, the process has been unpleasant, and I don't think there was good faith. But my reason for withdrawing these amendments is that I think it will speed things along.
Right.
And I'm confident the Bloc Québécois amendments really make, if there's still a good case to do this, I would hope the block amendments pass, and I do have a few more amendments, but I do want to speed this along and assist getting C12 out of committee. So those are my reasons.
Could you just read again which ones?
Well, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, and 33.
Okay, so you're asking that these be withdrawn.
Yeah, that they were deemed moved. I'm asking them to be deemed to have been withdrawn.
Right. So
I'm not sure if a non-member can make the a motion at committee, so that's why I made it. But I support.
No, that's okay. That's understandable. Yeah, but she can because they're her amendments. So, do we have unanimous consent for Ms. May to withdraw these?
One quick thing, Mr. Chair. Ms. May did mention 26, and I believe that we already dealt with at the last meeting. So I don't know if that should be in this one or not, just from a technical perspective.
Well, I don't. I think you may be right. You may be right.
In that case, start with where we are, which I think would be 27.
Okay, so.
Thanks, Brad.
So 27 to I think it's 32, is it? Or 33? 26, 27. But
32 is excluded because it deals with a different issue.
Yeah. So 26, well, it's gone. 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 33. Do I have unanimous consent? I appear to. So congratulations, Ms. May.
Not really.
Your wish has been granted.
I'm just trying to help you guys.
Well, we appreciate that. We appreciate that. So, okay. Now, Madam Clerk, you're keeping track of the time and how many minutes we will have met when we break for the vote. So, okay. So we were at CPC 17, and if I recall correctly, Madame Posé was up, and Mr. Albus also had his hand up. If that's not the case, that's correct. Yeah. Okay. So, Madame Posé. La parole est à vous là sur.
The floor is yours, Ms. Posé, to speak to CPC 17. Thank you, Chair. But before saying what I wanted to say on Monday, I would like to update the committee about something. Yesterday, during question period, I asked a question of the minister regarding lack of targets, and the minister answered, I quote, "I'm very sad that the Bloc Québécois has taken so much action to halt progress in committee. If we want C12 to truly tackle climate change, we hope that the Bloc Québécois will be our ally in that." You know, we cannot be accused of halting committee work. That was absolutely shocking to hear. I always respect my speaking time. I always work with colleagues. Ms. Michaud and I at the Bloc Québécois, we have done our work here. We never abuse parliamentary privilege. We work as allies to move the bill forward. So I was absolutely shocked. I respect the work of others, and I respect and follow procedure in this committee. We note that, yes. And we have that in the minutes for today's meeting, in the transcription. And your comment, Ms. Posé? Yes. Mr. Albus, when he presented this amendment, CPC 17, the translation was great. The translation said that the process had issues, and I agree with Mr. Albus. Ms. May just spoke about it too. I had a conversation with Pierre Nantel, former NDP MP. We had a press conference about the Green New Deal, but in my opinion, the NDP, in fact, went against its ideas from the time by supporting this bill, because we need something a lot stronger given the urgency to take action on climate change. So there is not enough being done to protect clean water. So that's what I wanted to add to what Mr. Albus said. That is, that the process was problematic, but there are some good bits that we could take. Noted. Thank you. I see no hands raised, so we can now vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're absolutely right. I apologize. I didn't see the hand, but you were next. Yes, sorry.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so I'll just remind everyone, because there may be people tuning in today that haven't had the opportunity to hear some of the conservative amendments. This one, Mr. Chair, has to do directly with the C12 in regards to the advisory body. Now, the government has set up one minister to basically appoint all 15 members. We've already seen the minister, before even passing C12, come forward with a list of names, almost like he doesn't need to bear to what Parliament says. But I am hoping that after Matt Generou's great opening salvo on the reason why we need to change the approach that's taken by the government here, that this particular amendment would be welcomed by all parties. So again, the Canadian Chamber of Commerce really liked this concept, as did the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers. Again, if we really want to see more independence of the board, where it can act and have a diversity of skill and insight, then by giving, for example, 6 to the Minister of the Environment, 3 positions on the recommendation of the Minister of Industry, 3 on the recommendations of the Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations, and 3 on the recommendation of the Minister of Finance. We think that by having each minister that I've named present who they believe should be on the board, you will end up with a stronger board, a more sense of an independence, because it's not all at the behest of one minister. And as I've said many times, Mr. Chair, it's an all hands on deck approach. Again, we didn't have any Indigenous witnesses. This would make sure that through the Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations, that would happen, and that there would be serious involvement, in this particular body. So I just ask all honorable members to support this. This would be a beneficial change. I think it would be welcomed by many, and we'll let it go to a vote, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So shall CPC 17 carry? Madam Clerk?
Yes. So Mr. Baker.
Opposed.
Mr. Biddle.
Opposed.
Mr. Longfield.
Opposed.
Mr. Saini.
Opposed.
Ms. Sachs.
Opposed.
Mr. Albus.
For.
Mr. Lewis.
In favor.
Ms. McLeod.
In favor.
Mr. Redekop.
In favor.
Madame Posey.
Ms. Posey, against.
And Mr. Bacharach.
Opposed.
So that is 4 in favor and 7 opposed.
Okay, so it does not carry. We go now to BQ. We go now to BQ 21, which I unfortunately have to rule inadmissible, and I will tell you. Oui.
Mr. Chair, yes. Perhaps we could allow Ms. Posey to present her amendment. Yes, of course. Go ahead, Ms. Posey. Not receivable? Okay. So I think we have to change the wording of committee. Is that it? Well, you can put forward your amendment, and then I will explain my reasoning. So here's the amendment. The House of Commons appoints the members of the, and here we would have to write carbon neutral group. So essentially, the interpreter would like to signal that the sound cut out briefly. So it would be on the recommendation of the Standing Committee on Environment and Sustainable Development. Our committee is made up of elected officials of various parties. We could assess the candidates based on the criteria in the Act. We think that this is absolutely reasonable. This type of process occurs for other political groups and bodies. This would be better than just having the government make appointments. This proposal would make it impartial. Now, we know that most of Mr. Albus's party's recommendations are on this same matter. Mr. Albus recently said how important it is to have a wealth of opinions and different types of expertise. We would like there to be more agreement. Our amendment would have it be that the members appointed are appointed by many people. The House could put forward suggestions for appointees, but they would be appointed in a fair and representative fashion. We are democratically elected MPs here on this committee representing various parties. So we would all confirm the appointments suggested by the government. I think that this would favor a transparent and democratic approach. We need a fair, equitable, transparent process for appointments. This would be beneficial for representing all regions of Canada. All parties would participate. This is essential for the committee to be able to uphold its democratic role. And in the United Kingdom, Mr. Chair, the Change Committee chooses its appointees in this way. Various legislative bodies in the country of all parties, of all regions, work together to choose members. I hope that my colleagues will support this amendment, thus supporting democracy and transparency. And this includes Conservative MPs who recently advocated for the necessity of democratic transparency in our process. Thank you.
Okay.
We will stop in a few minutes to go vote. So, unfortunately, this is not receivable. I will read the reasons for that, which are written in English.
One of Bill C-12 provides that the members of the advisory body will be appointed by the governor in council based on the recommendation of the minister, and that the governor and council will fix the members' remuneration. The amendment attempts to give the responsibility of appointing the members of the advisory body to the House of Commons based on the recommendation of the Standing Committee on Environment and Sustainable Development. As House of Commons procedure and practice, third edition states on page 772, quote, since an amendment may not infringe upon the financial initiative of the Crown, it is inadmissible if it imposes a charge on the public treasury or if it extends the objects or purposes or relaxes the conditions and qualifications specified in the royal recommendation. So the amendment, because it seeks to alter the terms and conditions of the royal recommendation, is, in my view, inadmissible. I don't know if anyone. Anyway, that's my ruling, and I think it makes sense based on the House of Commons procedure and practice, third edition. Okay, so we only have about a minute, but we're going to be going now to.
J'en appelle, Monsieur le Président.
Oui, okay.
We're now going to vote on this. We will not be debating this. Am I correct, Ms. Thibier? We're going straight to voting? Yes. But can I appeal this decision? Asked Ms. Posey. Yes, You can, and then we would vote on your appeal. Is that right? Our clerk is on mute.
Shall the decision of the chair be sustained? Mr. Baker,
I vote in favor of it being sustained.
Mr. Biddle,
In favor.
Mr. Longfield,
In favor.
Mr. Saney,
In favor.
Mr. Saney, Ms. Sachs,
In favor.
Mr. Albus,
Oppose.
Mr. Lewis,
I oppose.
Ms. McLeod,
Oppose.
Mr. Redekop,
Opposed.
Madame Posey,
Contre.
Mr. Bacharach.
In favor.
So that is 6 in favor, 5 against.
Okay, so the decision survives. We'll break in a couple of seconds, and when we come back, we'll the CPC 18. Yeah, so why don't we just break, and after everyone after the vote, as soon as the speaker reads the result of the vote, let's let's hop back on. I don't think we need to do a sound check or anything, so we'll pick up right where we left off. So I'll see everyone as soon as the speaker announces the result of the vote. Thank you.
First of all, Madam Sachs, was Madam Sachs's vote recorded properly? That's the first thing. On your decision, the vote on your decision. In other words, the decision concerning the admissibility of the amendment. You're saying that her vote was not recorded? Well, she raised her hand at the same time as the vote. Did she vote or did she raise her hand? It was Madam Sachs's vote recorded? Yes, I did record it. Fine. Second thing, I find it difficult to understand that the Bloc Québécois amendment is deemed irreceivable when it went through the legal clerks. Well, I can't make a comment on that because my opinion is based on the opinion of the law clerks. But we made a decision. I decided it was irreceivable, and there was an appeal, and my decision was sustained. And my third point, your third point? My third point was that you said that it was a question of money. But when I look at the 21 of the Government Council appoints people on recommendation of the minister and fixes the members' remuneration. The only thing the Bloc is trying to change is rather than have it the minister on recommendation of the minister, it's on the recommendation of the Standing Committee on the Environment and Sustainable Development. That's the crux of the problem. Well, that doesn't cost anything. Well, it's not a question of money, it's a question of principle. It comes from the right of the government to decide on the remuneration. So we can't, as a committee, the House of Commons cannot take on this right. So it means that the Governor and Council, in my book, that was kind of the equivalent of the government. So we said that the Governor and Council is not the one who can fix the recommendation. Well, according to the amendment,
oui, il faut malheureusement,
so can we proceed?
C'est ça la réponse, puis, mais il va falloir continuer là, parce qu'on a réglé ça.
Unfortunately, this was my answer. So we have to continue because we dealt with that issue. So where are we?
Alors,
CPC 18.
On est rendu à 18.
So we're at 18.
Do you want to propose that?
I'm sorry, you whatever you said, Mr. Chair, came totally inaudible on the English channel.
So, well, you mean what I said to Madame Posé?
No, just that last little section.
Okay. No, would you like to propose CPC 18?
No.
Okay.
I'd like just to make a quick statement on that, Mr. Chair. I got to say, we've had, as I said, many criticisms of the process, from not having rushed hearings to not having enough witnesses to not receiving briefs in a translated form so that we could make the timeline for the amendment.
This is a point of order. Right?
You know, I just want to say that, you know, I'm come to quickly understand what Madam Ms. May has been saying.
Okay.
And I think, you know, we're just not going to move any more of our amendments, because I believe this process is broken. We've had a number of rulings against amendments. We've had every opportunity. The Liberals and the NDP have voted down every other amendment.
Well, that's their democratic right.
CPC
I mean, that's their democratic right. Okay, but we need, okay, so you're not putting forward CPC 18. Okay. So we now go to, well, PVC 27 was taken out. So we're now at...
Point of order.
Yes, Ms. May.
NDP 5.
I'm just very apologetic to point this out, but I came as quickly as I could after the vote was announced.
Yeah.
It was for all of you to resume. I don't know, just so you can resolve this for yourselves, but I don't think your votes should have counted on the last motion that took place in the main chamber. because it wasn't resolved until just before I came. So I'll just flag that for you. It doesn't.
So
affect the
please,
work of this
could
committee.
you come explain that again? So did you just join us now? Were you?
I joined just as quickly as I could, and it seems that you were well underway. And
Oh, I'm sorry.
wondered,
I thought you were here. I thought you were
no,
here.
I'm just no. I don't mind that I wasn't here, but the point is, your votes shouldn't have counted on that last vote
in the house.
Yeah.
I think that's a matter for the House then.
Yeah,
that's right.
for our
That's
committee.
right. I'm
Not
just
for our
flagging it for you. Moving away.
Okay, I've got I'm just going to stick to the clause by clause. That's challenging enough. So we'll go to NDP 5, Mr. Bachrach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm pleased to introduce this amendment. This deals with, and I believe I spoke a little bit about this prior, the makeup of the advisory committee, and lays out the expertise that we represented on that committee. And I think it does speak for itself, but this also speaks to a number of the discussions we've had related to previous amendments. So the idea here is that we should be constraining the membership of the advisory body to individuals who have proven expertise in specific areas that are relevant to this legislation and to the goal of net zero by 2050. Including Indigenous knowledge, climate change science, relevant physical and social sciences, including economic analysis and forecasting, climate change and climate policy at the national, subnational, and international levels, et cetera, et cetera. And I think folks are pretty familiar with this amendment, so I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Oh, one more thing, Mr. Chair. I would add that this is taken directly from the approach used in New Zealand and the UK, which are two jurisdictions that we've heard quite a bit about, both in the testimony and the discussion at committee.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Albus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Conservatives will not be voting in favor of this amendment. I just want to note that while Mr. Bachrach has said that this is similar to things that have been drawn out of other jurisdictions, clearly the amendments that have been tabled by both the Liberals and the NDP are not what witnesses were calling for. I've talked to many stakeholders who have argued that these are not the kind of provisions that they want to see. And again, so I'm not interrupted by Mr. Biddle again, I just got to say that this process has been truncated. It has been steamrolled. We've seen people's amendments put forward in good faith ruled out of order or just voted without even a defense from the government or from the NDP. I think that this is not a process that is suitable. We will be voting opposed.
NDP 5. Okay. Madame Posey.
Madame Posey? Yes. You had raised your hand? No, I was just waiting for the end of the interpretation before speaking. So, the Bloc Québécois will vote for this one, but we believe that with 22 and 23, it would really make a perfect whole. But when I hear the NDP representative talk about the UK and New Zealand approach, we know that that's where climate change governments is the best, it's the model. And so I would like that in the next Bloc Québécois amendments that are also inspired by a healthy climate change, and that they would vote in favor of our amendments. Thank you. Do you mind lowering your hand? And so we'll call the vote. Madam Clerk?
NDP 5, Mr. Baker.
In favor.
Mr. Biddle.
In favor.
Mr. Longfield.
In favor.
Mr. Saini.
En faveur.
Ms. Sachs.
Favor.
Mr. Albus.
Opposed.
Mr. Lewis.
Against.
Ms. McLeod.
Opposed.
Mr. Redekop.
No.
Madame Posey.
En faveur.
Mr. Bachrach.
In favor.
So that is 7 in favor.
Merci. Alors, l'amendement est adopté. PV.
Thank you. So the amendment is adopted. PV 28 was withdrawn. And so now we are at BQ 22. Madame Posé? Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm just getting there. So, yes, you didn't vote for the independent expert committee that we're proposing, so I understand that people will vote against this one as well. But I just want to remind you that the role of that organization, and everyone said it, has to be strengthened, consolidated. The COVID pandemic has let us see that we can't see politics interfere with the importance of scientific advice, and our amendments are all in that regard to get scientific advice. Madame Lequerie, who was a part of the GIEC group, she knows that the upper Council of France was able to bring clarification to the debate and have robust evidence, more and more specific to obstacles to progress. And the government was able to act on that. And that's why this was efficient. So in French, this brought transparency, accountability, which increased the understanding and the support of the public, which is totally democratic. So I'm presenting this, and I'm inviting people to work to vote for it. I'll call the vote.
Your hand went up as I was.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. I know you've already called the vote. I was just going to respond briefly to Ms. Posé. But
okay, but I've called the vote. Yeah. So Madam Clerk, if you could do a roll call vote.
Certainly. So it's BQ 22. Mr. Baker.
Opposed.
Mr. Biddle.
Opposed.
Mr. Longfield.
Opposed.
Mr. Saini.
Opposed.
Ms. Sachs.
Opposed.
Mr. Albus.
Opposed.
Mr. Lewis.
Opposed.
Ms. McLeod.
Opposed.
Mr. Redekop.
No.
Madame Posé.
En faveur.
And Mr. Bacharach.
opposed.
So that is 1 in favor, 10 opposed.
Okay, so it does not carry. We go now to CPC 19. Mr. Albus. Mr. Albus?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I was just switching off. We're withdrawing this one, Mr. Chair. Again, for the
you're not period.
I don't think we're going to get any support for it. I'm not going to waste anyone's time with it.
Okay, that brings us to BQ 23.
Alors, oui, je vais déposer cet important.
So, yes, I want to present this important amendment. Yes, we will have to change independent expert committee with the word that was voted in NDP4, I think. So the name of the committee will be used. So BQ 23 has important clarification on the constitution of the expert committee, science and expertise, absence of conflict of interest with the mandate of the committee. So I'm repeating it. Words have a meaning, and our legal experts who are here know this. There are expressions that are interchangeable, but others aren't. For example, objectives is not a target, and that's why legal texts have to be very precise. So for everything affecting the committee, the demonstration was made in terms of the advantages that are related to a selection of members as a function of criteria that are defined in terms of the profile, the knowledge and experience, important experience, multidisciplinary experience and expertise in addressing climate change. So I don't think that we believe that only scientists are desirable as members. That's not what we're saying. But we have to have many members who do have that profile. So we have to understand that the fight against climate change has really concerned experts in many disciplines, in applied science, but also economists, also specialists in public policy development, experts in green finance, of green taxation, And D, we're saying that at least one of the members must be a health expert with experience relevant to the committee's mandate. So yes, we hope to have someone who has relevant experience. It seems to us responsible. And why? You know that since I've been talking about the environment, I always want to combine health and environment together. It's something that's very important for me. And so I don't want to refrain from mentioning it today. I share the opinion of thousands of doctors in Quebec and Canada, of whom one came to testify to the committee, and also elsewhere, doctors in the world who require legislation that will protect the physical and psychological health of the population. I want to remind you that health problems related to pollution is 6% of Canada's GDP. And so that's according to Health Canada. So if we believe in our institutions, and we should really think about that, 6% of the GDP, which are costs because of health problems directly related to pollution. I want to remind the members that the presence of doctors from the Canadian Associations of Doctors for the Environment came to testify for this committee and are saying that medical expertise must absolutely be represented on this committee. And I'll give you an example here. In the UK, there are 6 out of 9 people are scientists. In France, 11 out of 13 members are scientists, so 85% of the committee members. In New Zealand, 2 out of 6 members, so 33% of the committee members. In Quebec, 9 out of 12, so 75% of the committee members. And in Canada, what was announced by the minister this winter, 1 out of 14, so 7% of the committee members. So we're not counting the number of times where the government, by means of various ministers, parliamentary secretaries, are saying that we have to base ourselves on science. We will be listening to science. Well, I want to tell you, it's time to honor that in voting for BQ 23. Thank you. Thank you, Madame Posey. So I will call the vote on Amendment BQ 23. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Baker.
Opposed.
Mr. Biddle.
Opposed.
Mr. Longfield.
Opposed.
Mr. Saini.
Contre.
Ms. Sachs.
Opposed.
Mr. Albus.
Entre.
Mr. Lewis.
Vote against.
Ms. McLeod.
Opposed.
Mr. Redekop.
No.
Madame Posey.
Mon micro, désolé.
My micro.
And Mr. Bachrach.
Opposed.
So that is 1 in favor, 10 opposed.
Okay, so it is defeated, and we go now to BQ 24. Madame Posey?
Oui, merci.
Yes, thank you. So BQ 24, well, you won't be surprised that I'm repeating that the role of the organization must be strengthened. So what we have now has no relationship to what is done elsewhere, where climate governance is functional. It's not functional in Canada. We were told that several times, and we're coming back and saying, well, we absolutely have to strengthen that. So this is why. Thank you.
Mr. Longfield, your hand is up.
I just wanted to check with the officials whether there were any translation issues, whether we've got that properly done on this one.
And this is Vincent On from Environment and Climate Change Canada. We just want to confirm that there is no difference in meaning, given that federal legislation are co-drafted, meaning that they're being drafted concurrently with English and French at the same time and not translated from one language to another. It means that both language versions of a statute are drafted, and therefore there's no variance or difference in the meaning.
Thank you.
Okay, I call the vote. Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mr. Baker.
Opposed.
Mr. Biddle,
Opposed.
Mr. Longfield,
Opposed.
Mr. Saney,
Contre.
Ms. Sachs,
Opposed.
Mr. Albus,
Opposed.
Mr. Lewis,
Opposed.
Mr. Redekop, Madam McLeod,
Opposed.
Mr. Redekop,
Opposed.
Madam Posey,
En faveur.
and Mr. Backrack.
Opposed.
So that is 1 in favor, 10 opposed.
So the amendment is defeated. PV 29 was withdrawn. We go now to BQ 25. Madame Posey.
Alors, encore une.
And so here again, BQ 25, we're coming back to this independent expert committee. And I can see by the votes so far, I understand what the result of the vote will be for BQ 25 here. We're rejecting the idea of having an efficient climate governance. Thank you. So we'll call the vote. Madam Clerk.
Opposed.
Mr. Biddle,
Opposed.
Mr. Longfield,
Opposed.
Mr. Saney,
Contre.
Madam Sachs,
Opposed.
Mr. Albus,
Opposed.
Mr. Lewis,
Contre.
Ms. McLeod,
Opposed.
Mr. Redekop,
Opposed.
Madam Posey,
En faveur.
Mr. Backrack.
Opposed.
So that is 1 in favor, 10 opposed.
So it does not carry. We go now to BQ 26. Madame Posey.
OK, BQ 20.
So BQ 26. For us, this is an addition that's important, and there always has to be a change for this independent expert committee using the name of the committee that prevails. It's an important addition that refers to the financial resources that are put at the disposal of the committee. The committee or the advisory group must be able to count on sufficient resources, allowing them to have the staff it needs to conduct its affairs and carry out its mandate. The work that it needs to do cannot be done with the necessary resources. In this committee, we've already discussed the lack of resources at the Commissioner of the Environment and Sustainable Development. The committee created by C12 must really be equipped with financial means that are adequate for its mission. Again, I will say that the UK committee accomplishes its mandate with a structure of analysts, of researchers. 35 full-time people work for this team. So a support team is necessary to support this function, which covers technical, social, financial expertise, scientific knowledge to equip it with the resources necessary to allow it to conduct its work. So again, the UK, which works efficiently, has 35 people to help this committee. What will happen with amendment of BQ 26? Unfortunately, with the same logic as for BQ 21, this is not receivable. I can read the advice that I got. It's because with this amendment, the House of Commons takes possession of financial power, so it's irreceivable. So I wonder why we accepted that these the amendments were in the list of amendments, and this was not said earlier. But for the other amendment, I want to remind you that unless it being the minister that determines it. It's the governor in council. It's not the Committee for the Environment and Sustainable Development. Well, if you wish, you can object to the chair's decision and we'll vote. No, it's fine, Mr. Chair.
Retiré. Alors, c'est encore à votre tour, Madame Posé. On est rendu à BQ 27.
PV 30 was withdrawn, so now it's your turn again, Madame Posé. We're at BQ 27. Yes, so I will present this because we really want this to be efficient. So in order to do that, we need experts, people who are independent, who are at arm's length from the minister. So I would like to present BQ 27. I don't see any hands raised. Mr. Bachrach?
Mr. Bachrach?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, Mr. Chair, because we have called the advisory body the Net Zero Advisory Body in several previous clauses, whether all of a sudden referring to it as the Independent Expert Committee is going to cause confusion or technical issues in terms of the interpretation of the bill. Perhaps,
is that a question for Mr. Moffat? Or?
Sure, maybe Mr. Moffat could clarify, because I know there are a number of amendments that deal with the same thing, and it seems to me that having a body that is referred to as two things within the same bill would at the very least be confusing and possibly cause issues in terms of its interpretation.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, John.
It's okay.
Yeah, I think just to be clear, there's actually two terms now in the bill. There's the lowercase advisory body, which has still been retained in a number of provisions. And then there's the new formal title that's been given as a result of the amendment that was passed. So I can't tell you that there would be a definitive kind of legal problem, but I think your observation that introducing yet a third term might create some confusion.
Thank you. Mr. Albus.
I don't want to belabor a point, Mr. Chair, but I do believe that we've decided that on all parliamentary committees, even when we have virtual, that we want to have neutral backgrounds. I take no exception to what Mr. Moffat has, but just to have it so we have a consistent rule that's applied across all virtual committees.
Yeah.
Sure. So my apologies. I'll take it down. This was a commemoration of the.
Yeah. No. I have nothing wrong with that. It's just we just need to have consistency.
Yeah, sure. I didn't appreciate the rule. I'll take it down.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. So. The vote on BQ 27 is called. Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mr. Baker.
Opposed.
Mr. Biddle.
Opposed.
Mr. Longfield.
Opposed.
Mr. Saini.
Opposed.
Ms. Sachs.
Opposed.
Mr. Albus.
Opposed.
Mr. Lewis.
Opposed.
Ms. McLeod.
Opposed.
Mr. Redekop.
Opposed.
Madame Posé.
En faveur.
Mr. Bachrach.
Opposed.
So that is 1 in favor, 10 opposed.
Shall clause 21 as amended carry. Vote is called.
Monsieur le Président, votre micro.
Sorry, shall clause 21 as amended carry? The vote is called.
So,
sorry, the vote is called. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Yes, Mr. Baker.
In favor.
Mr. Biddle.
In favor.
Mr. Longfield.
In favor.
Mr. Saini.
In favor.
Madam Sachs.
Favor.
Mr. Albus.
Opposed.
Mr. Lewis.
Opposed.
Ms. McLeod.
Opposed.
Mr. Redekop.
Opposed.
Madame Posé, oui.
Oui, en faveur.
Merci, Mr. Bachrach.
Opposed. Or sorry, in favor. We're voting on clause 21, correct?
That's
Yeah,
correct.
As amended.
Sorry, my mistake. In favor.
So that's 7 in favor, 4 opposed.
Okay, so it's adopted as amended. PV 31 was withdrawn, so we are now at BQ 28. With so the floor goes to Madame Posey.
Oui.
Yes. So thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm coming back again because I'm stubborn to say that we need independent experts to be in charge of doing these because we know what good climate governance is. We have several examples in the world that show this. Why do we not model ourselves on people who are ahead of us? On the UK, for example, that saw their emissions go down by 28% since 2010, whereas Canada's have increased or have only very slightly decreased. So I don't understand why the committee insists on not considering what's done where there's good governance and is refusing to follow their example when we know that those people succeeded. Thank you.
Clerk.
Yes, Mr. Baker.
Oh.
I'm sorry, Mr. Baker?
Opposed? A point of order. I think it's fair on this one, Mr. Chair. Mr. Albus did have his hand up.
Oh, did he? Sorry, it didn't show up.
In all fairness.
Okay, well, if you
yes.
say so, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to MP Biddle for that. I just had a quick question for Raj. Come on, mute it, man, mute it. Madame Posey, just to be clear, when she is tabling these, I'm making the mental change in my mind that she's updating it to have the NDP's amendment to the name of the advisory board or the advisory panel. Is that not the case? It seems to be that that sometimes that is being applied, sometimes it isn't. Maybe Madame Posey can just let us know if that's the case.
Yes, that's right. The NDP brought an amendment that changed the name for this, but I informed myself to see that I could still table these amendments and argue for them. I was told yes, and I'm doing it.
Okay.
Thank you.
The vote is called.
Mr. Baker.
Opposed.
Mr. Biddle.
Opposed.
Mr. Longfield.
Opposed.
Mr. Saini.
Opposed.
Madam Sachs.
Opposed.
Mr. Albus.
Opposed.
Mr. Lewis.
I'm opposed.
Ms. McLeod. Ms. McLeod.
Sorry, I put my mic up. Opposed.
Thank you. Mr. Redcop.
Opposed.
Madame Posey.
En faveur.
Mr. Bachrach.
Opposed.
So that's 1 in favor, 10 opposed.
So the amendment is defeated. We now go to G14. Mr. Saini, I believe it's you who is proposing this one.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm pleased to introduce a motion to amend subsection 22, parentheses 1 of the Canadian Net Zero Emissions Accountability Act. This motion clarifies that the body's annual report must set out the result of its engagement activities. This motion increases accountability in the Act.
Thank you. Mr. Albus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be supporting it, not just because it comes from the Honourable Member MP Saini, but also because it does, I think, result in a better outcome. Conservatives have said that we do support transparency and accountability. This is one small measure that improves the bill, and we are not so ideological, Mr. Chair, that we will not support an idea that improves upon the bill, the C12. So we'll be supporting this amendment. But again, there was some charm and just inherent to Mr. Saini's presentation, and I will applaud him for that.
Yeah, that's noted, and thank you, Mr. Saini, for your congratulations on your success and your charm, of course. So we go now to PV. We have to vote. So we're getting carried away there. We have to vote. So go ahead. Madame Posey had her hand up. Sorry, Madame Posey. Madame Posey.
Oui.
Yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I thought I had all the appropriate documents, but I don't have this amendment. Could you just read it slowly, please? Yes, just a second.
C12 à la...
That Bill C12 in Clause 22 be amended by replacing line 2 on page 9 with the following. To the Minister, with respect to its advice and activities. And this is what's underlined now, including setting out the result of its engagement activities. All right, thank you. My pleasure. So we'll vote on this. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Yes, okay. G14, Mr. Baker.
In favor.
Mr. Biddle.
In favor.
Mr. Longfield.
In favor.
Mr. Saini.
In favor.
Ms. Sachs.
Favor.
Mr. Albus.
In favor.
Mr. Lewis.
In favor.
Ms. McLeod.
In favor.
Mr. Redekop.
In favor.
Madame Posey.
En faveur.
Mr. Bachrach.
In favor.
It's 11 in favor, none opposed.
Oh, great. It carries, obviously. Now, PV 32 was not withdrawn by Ms. May, so excuse me, she has
Correct.
the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment is the first one, and the reason I removed all the other ones together, of course, was that they were on the same theme as Madame Posey's excellent amendments relating to the Independent Advisory Expert Committee, which we had hoped to put in place. This amendment is to the question of the report of that committee. We know in the subsequent clause, which appears just below in clause 22, there's a subsection 2, which says the minister must publicly respond to the advice of the advisory committee, but the public is not to be aware of the advice submitted by the advisory committee because its annual report, which is referred to in subsection 1 and subsequently further amended by the G14, which you just accepted, that report isn't required to be put anywhere for the public to read it. So this is subsection 1.1, very clear, very straightforward. I hope you'll accept it. The minister must publish the annual report of the Net Zero Advisory Committee on, but I'm inserting the words net zero, but the annual report on the website of the Department of Environment and Climate after receiving it.
Thank you, Mr. Longfield.
Yeah, I'm going to oppose this just because we have a motion coming up from Mr. Bachrach that is, I think, more rigorous, that has the public reports requirement in it, that has an annual report to the advisory body that has to be made public within 30 days of receiving it and responded to within 120 days. And those reports already go onto government websites, so it's redundant in terms of an upcoming motion.
Mr. Albus.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just hope for Mr. Longfield's sake that Mr. Bachrach doesn't suddenly pull a fast one on him and not put that motion forward.
The vote is called, Madam Clerk.
Yes, the vote on PV 32, Mr. Baker.
Opposed.
Mr. Biddle.
Opposed.
Mr. Longfield.
Opposed.
Mr. Saini.
Opposed.
Ms. Sachs.
Opposed.
Mr. Albus.
Against.
Mr. Lewis.
Opposed.
Madam McLeod.
Opposed.
Mr. Redekop.
Opposed.
Madame Posey.
En faveur.
Mr. Bachrach.
Opposed.
1 in favor and 10 opposed.
So the amendment is defeated. We go to NDP 6. Mr. Bachrach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this adds words after line 2 on page 9, inserts the following. 1.1, when providing its advice and preparing its report, the advisory body must take into account a range of factors, to the extent they are relevant to the purpose of this act, including environmental, economic, social, and technological, and the best available scientific information and knowledge, including Indigenous knowledge respecting climate change. And again, this reflects much of the testimony that we heard from various witnesses related to the importance of the best available science and also the importance of Indigenous knowledge. So I hope that the committee sees fit to support the amendment.
Thank you. Mr. Albus.
Just in regards to this, is Mr. Bachrach, or is he including the updated name of the committee, as he's pointed out on other occasions, that could be an issue?
I'm not quite sure how to answer that.
I can speak to that, Mr. Chair, if you'd like.
Go ahead. Yep.
So we heard from the official earlier about the fact that there are 2 versions, a short version and a longer version of the name of the advisory body. In both cases, the words advisory body appear. So the way I interpret it anyway is that when it's used simply as advisory body, it refers to the longer form of the same name. My issue with calling it an expert committee is that it's entirely different, and that could result in confusion. But often in cases like this, there's a shorter version that uses some of the words but not others. So I think it's clear enough.
Is your hand up again?
I did not intend to replace it with the longer version.
Is your hand up again, Mr. Albus?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So I appreciate MP Bachrach weighing in on that. If he'd wanted to take a more charitable viewpoint of it, we would have simply just said, just include the new term in it. That probably could provide some consistency. But again, conservatives believe that when a good idea comes forward, that it's worthy of support, we shall support it. And in this case, Mr. Chair, because we've raised a number of concerns about this particular government's tendency to reject anyone else's ideas, especially when we were talking about a subject where the very nature that this advisory panel will be engaging on may be very divisive. And we do need them to take things like social, economic, and technological and the best scientific information available, including Indigenous knowledge. So this is one of those ones that we're going to support. Glad to support, because quite honestly, C12 would be lesser without having some reference to the social, economic, and some of the other factors that are included in this motion.
Thank you. The vote is called. Madam Clerk.
Yes, Mr. Baker.
In favor.
Mr. Biddle.
In favor.
Mr. Longfield.
In favor.
Mr. Saini.
In favor.
Ms. Sachs.
Favor.
Mr. Albus.
Favor.
Mr. Lewis.
In favor.
Ms. McLeod.
In favor.
Mr. Redekop.
In favor.
Madame Posey.
En faveur.
Mr. Bachrach.
In favor.
That's 11 in favor, 0 against.
Okay, NDP 7. Mr. Bachrach.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Just finding my place here. NDP 7. This amends line 3 and 4 on page 9 with the following under Minister's response. The annual report available to the public within 30 days of receiving it, and then within 120 days of receiving that report, the minister must publicly respond to the advice that the advisory body includes in it with respect to matters referred in paragraphs 20 sub 1A to C, including any national greenhouse gas emissions target that is recommended by the advisory body if the minister has set a target that is different from it. So as Mr. Longfield indicated earlier, this is a more elaborate and robust version of what Ms. May was suggesting. And an important component is the requirement that if the minister chooses to set a greenhouse gas emissions target that is different from that which the advisory body recommended, he should provide a rationale for why he did so, he or she did so.
Thank you, Mr. Bachrach. The vote is called.
On division?
Okay, so it is adopted on division. Everyone agrees, yeah? Okay. Go to PV 33 was withdrawn. So the question is, does clause 22 carry as amended?
On division?
On division, okay. No one objects to that, okay. And that brings us to, well, shall clause 23 carry?
Opposed?
Non, un instant, là.
Oui.
Just a minute, please. 22 was adopted. Mr. Chair? We're at Article 23 now. Oh, PV 23, sorry. But now we are going to Article 23. I have an amendment. Did you write it and send it to the clerk? Yes, it's being done now. So I want to make sure everything's fine. So I hope, Madam Clerk, that you will receive it immediately. What the amendment states is that Bill C-12 at Article 23 by modified by substitutions at lines 14 and 5, page 9, so that's in French, by what follows. So as much on the main principal measures taken on by the federal departments and organizations and the Crown societies in order to manage these risks. And you've sent this to the clerk?
Explain what's going on, because I thought we voted for clause 22. Aren't we supposed to now vote for clause 23?
Yes, but you can have amendments from the floor.
But doesn't that come after?
After what?
What Madame Posé is saying sounds like BQ 29, is it not?
No,
it's not.
It's an amendment from the floor.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Scared me there, Mr. Saint.
No. Sorry. I didn't hear that part. Sorry about that.
Okay. So, but what we need is the wording. You know, it has to be sent to all the members so we know what we're voting on. And that's what I'm waiting.
I just sent it quickly.
Okay. Okay, here it is. Yeah. Okay. So, Madame Posé, est-ce que vous aimeriez?
Madame Posé, would you like to speak on this amendment? Yes, a few words. So, we're always doing this with a view to transparency. It's not the first time I'm talking about this. And of accountability, which is what this bill is supposed to promote. So for us, it's essential that the report takes into account the various sources of funding and the mechanisms that are used by the state, by specifying that the report of the finance minister has to focus on measures that are taken on by the public and also by Crown, states, and federal organizations. And in that way, we can have a much more complete picture of the risks and the opportunities of a financial order that are related to fighting climate change. And I will take advantage of this opportunity to quote a report written by the Canadian Institute for Climate Choices. And I also want to remind you that the International Energy Agency has said that it's important to note that technologies for carbon elimination are not an alternative to the reduction of emissions or an excuse for a delayed action. So given that we're here, I want to say that what the Canadian Institute for Climate Choices says, we already know several solutions that will be at the heart of emissions reductions over the next decade. And electric vehicles, more eco-energetic buildings, and solar and wind energy are all sure values. And Canada has all the advantage to do this, and it will have to diversify its portfolio of risky bets to demonstrate that some of them will turn out to be viable when we do need them. And this is why we're tabling this amendment, so that one can see the entire set of measures that are carried out, not only by departments, but also all federal organizations and Crown corporations. Thank you. We'll call the vote on Madame Posé's amendment to Article 23. Madam Clerk?
Opposed.
Mr. Biddle,
Opposed.
Mr. Longfield,
Opposed.
Mr. Saini,
Opposed.
Mr. Albus,
Opposed.
Mr. Lewis,
I'm opposed.
Ms. McLeod, Mr. Redekop,
Opposed.
Madame Posey,
En faveur.
Mr. Bacharach.
Opposed.
So that's 1 in favor, 10 opposed.
Okay, shall clause 23 carry?
On division.
Okay. Anyone object? No? Okay. So we go to, and there's an amendment BQ 29 proposing a new clause 23.1. Madame Posé?
Oui.
Yes, Mr. Chair. In order to not create any confusion, because there was a lot of confusion on the place where this was tabled. Really, this comes from the Environment Commissioner, so it's under that, in that category, Commissioner of the Environment and Sustainable Development. And I know that my assistant communicated with Madame Tivierge to clarify that situation. So I'm saying that it's important that this be under the rubric of the Commissioner for the Environment and Sustainable Development, because that is what is in question. Does that raise a problem? Otherwise, I'll present this. So you're just proposing your amendment. No, I'm saying that this amendment must be under the title of the Commissioner of the Environment and Sustainable Development. So just before Article 24. But I know they looked at this issue and that's where it needs to go. So you want to insert this amendment under the rubric of Article 24 of the Commissioner. Madame Tivierge? So it is where you'd like it to be, because it's above line 18. It is under the title of Commissioner of the Environment and Sustainable Development. So we're saying it's before line 18 and not after line 7. It's not because it's numbered 23 that it belongs to 23. So it'll be just before 24.1. So what you're saying, Madame Tivierge, is that the amendment will stay where it is? Do we need to change it? No, it's you've just reassured Madame Posé that it is where she was wanting it to be. Yes, so I'd like to present this. So I will present BQ 29 and BQ 30 together, because this is an amendment that's important, but they're the same arguments for BQ 29 as for BQ 30, so I won't repeat myself. I'll present them together. So just one moment, it's not that simple. Well, I can present them separately. Yes, it would be better, Madame Posé, if this doesn't bother you, because I have to make a decision in terms of BQ 30, so it's more complicated. So if we could pass to the vote, well, I'll present it first. No, you haven't presented it yet. No. So please go ahead and present it. Thank you. So for us, this is an amendment that
Madame Posey is moving it. Is moving 29. Then we'll vote on it. Well, this is not 30, Mr. Longfield. Mr. Longfield?
That's fine. I thought she was going on to 30 because
No.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Go ahead, Madame Posey. Allez-y, Madame Posey.
Thank you. So this block amendment talks about the exam by the Commissioner of the Minister's Action Plan and the objectives. Without an independent review or exam, there's no real evaluation of the government's plan as a function of the objectives. So it means that the citizens will never have what they need in terms of the relevance of Canadian climate policy. So this is the best mechanism for accountability. It's the best measure of transparency to have this process function. So refusing this amendment is refusing transparency. You've voted against other transparency motions, but you have a chance now to vote for it. Here, the Commissioner will evaluate the Minister's report. Without this amendment, the Minister will continue to carry out his or her own evaluation. So the Commissioner, in our book, intervenes twice, once to evaluate the plan and then to evaluate the report, which is not the same thing. So I will refer to experts who testified to the committee in a study table by Mrs. Collins on the possibility of making the Commissioner of the Environment and Sustainable Development an independent agent at the same level of the Auditor General. During that study, Madeleine Lequerre, President of the High Council for Climate for France and member of the Climate Committee, the UK Climate Committee, clearly indicated that it would be desirable to have an independent commissioner and repeated that in the context of C12, it should be indicated that the commissioner plays a more important role. She also came to give evidence twice for the Commissioner's observations for C12, and she was saying that in the bill, the tracking of the measures put in place is weak. Carrying out this follow-up is the work of the Commissioner of the Environment and Sustainable Development. So we're asking them to produce a report, not very often, every 5 years. So there's no reason to wait that long to do a follow-up on plans that are in place and do it more often, which will allow people to readjust their direction quickly. So here she also criticized the fact that the advisory body is too close to the minister. So that should be really an arm's length relationship, and saying that that evidence is not visible. So that advisory body is too close to the government and too far from the Commissioner of the Environment and Sustainable Development, who has to review these policy decisions. So we have to look in both directions, forward and back. And the Commissioner also must be supported by a very strong analytical technical team that could analyze the gaps, the previous gaps, in order to support the future work. So the role of past review and future recommendations would be much stronger. So she's saying an efficient framework to require the government to reveal the recommendations to Canadians, and that voters, many of them are parents of children who in 30 years, these children will have to bear the burden of what we're leaving them with. But it's important for them to have the essential data that voters and citizens need to correctly evaluate the efficiency of new climate measures. The foundations of parliamentary process rests on an enlightened electorate, and it's the NDP through Ms. Collins who had tabled a motion to ask that the commissioner be more independent. And finally, I would like to remind you of a quote of what Madame Collins was saying on C12 on November 4th on the role of the commissioner. And she says the NDP has exerted pressure that a independent office of accountability in terms of climate change be created, and that we appoint to its head a commissioner. The commissioner would have his mandate to carry out research and to gather information and data coming from analysis in terms of the targets to be reached or targets to be modified, to prepare a report that includes conclusions and recommendations in terms of the quality and the exhaustivity of evidence from scientific, economic, and technological analysis for each target in the plan. So she concluded by saying, and to give advice on all relevant questions in terms of climate change and sustainable development. So in this excerpt, we understand what the Bloc Québécois and the witnesses to the study were saying, and there's an important part of this in both of these amendments. So right now we're discussing BQ 29. So in order to be consistent with what was done at the committee before C12 and what the experts came to tell us, well, I invite the committee to vote for Amendment BQ 29.
Your hand is up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I missed. Did you call my name there?
Yeah.
Okay, fabulous. I want to thank Madame Posey for recognizing the hard work of Ms. Collins, and she laid out many of the arguments that my colleague has made at Envy. And I note that Ms. Collins did bring forward a motion at this committee to both strengthen the mandate of the Environment Commissioner and make the Environment Commissioner an independent officer of Parliament. And unfortunately, other members chose to vote against that motion, and it was not successful. So we certainly support the spirit. The challenge that we have with this amendment is that it's putting the cart before the horse. It's speaking to an expanded mandate for the commissioner before that mandate has been created. So we're going to keep up our efforts in the House to expand the mandate of the Environment Commissioner and make that position an independent officer. And hopefully at some point in the future, once we're successful with those efforts, we will be able to amend this act accordingly. But at this point, I think we're essentially calling in this amendment, it calls for the commissioner to perform a role that it is not, he or she is not empowered to perform under the legislation. So I'll leave my comments at that, but I appreciate Madame Posey's recognition of Ms. Collins' work and the spirit behind this.
Okay, thank you. The vote is called on BQ 29.
Mr. Baker,
Opposed.
Mr. Biddle,
Opposed.
Mr. Longfield,
Opposed.
Mr. Saini,
Opposed.
Ms. Sachs, opposed, Mr. Albus,
Opposed.
Mr. Lawrence.
Sorry, Mr. Lewis is opposed.
Okay.
Oh, excuse me, Mr.
I'm glad
Lewis.
we
sorry.
lost you there, Mr. Lewis.
Ms. McLeod,
Opposed.
Mr. Redekop,
Opposed.
Madame Posey,
En faveur.
Mr. Backrack.
I'm opposed.
So that is 1 in favor, 10 opposed.
Okay, so it's defeated. Now we go to BQ
Mr.
30.
Chair?
Yeah.
It's been well past 2 hours. If we could request just even a 5-minute break.
Okay, 5-minute break. 6:49. We'll start up again. Good idea, Mr. Albus. the annual progress report in the bill. However, BQ 30 could be moved without the word annual. So we'd require, if Madame Posé wants to move BQ 30, I guess she could move that the word annual be taken out.
Oui, il faut juste parler annuel. Oui.
Okay.
Oui.
Alors donc propose.
That's right. Yes. Okay, Madame Posé. So you're proposing an amendment. How do you want to proceed, Ms. Tivierge? Because Ms. Posé here has not yet. She actually has to present the amendment, and then she agrees to remove annual. Is that a sub-amendment, or is that an amendment of some form of initiative on her part? How should we proceed, Madam Clerk? Procedurally. Actually, she just has to do what she did in the past. While putting it forward, she can mention that she's withdrawing the term annual. Does everyone have to agree with this? No. If she's presenting it, she could just mention that she personally is withdrawing the word annual. Madame Posé, is that what you intend to do, says the chair? The sound is cutting out. Your sound is cut. No, it's just Mr. Albas.
Before we get to BQ 30?
I'm not sure what happened there, Mr. Chair.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so we'll let Madame Posé propose BQ 30, and I think she's going to ask that when she proposes it, she's going to do so without the word annual, if I understand. Allez-y, Madame Posé.
Go ahead, Madame Posé. Yes. So, again, here we are trying to strengthen the role of the Commissioner. During the tabling of Ms. Collins's motion, the committee did not vote in favor of that, but here we are at point C12. Here we are dealing with C12. It's another opportunity that we have to strengthen the Commissioner's role. So in this particular amendment, so you'd have within 6 months after you strike the word annual, progress report is tabled under subsection 18.3. The Commissioner, it was on the action plan, but here we want the Commissioner to verify the report. So it's a matter of strengthening climate governance, strengthening the Commissioner's role. Okay. So we've called a vote. Ms. Crandall?
Opposed.
Mr. Biddle?
Opposed.
Mr. Longfield?
Opposed.
Mr. Saini?
Opposed.
Ms. Sachs? Opposed. Mr. Albas?
Opposed.
Mr. Lewis?
Opposed.
Ms. McLeod?
Opposed.
Mr. Redekop?
Opposed.
Madame Posé?
4 in favor.
Opposed.
So that is 1 in favor, 10 opposed.
Okay, so it does not pass. So we go now to clause 24 and BQ 30. Well, go ahead, Madame Posé.
Alors, merci. Donc,
Go ahead, Madame Posé. Yes, again, on the Commissioner's role in the original C12, it is a role that is almost aesthetic. In fact, he came before the committee to describe his role, and he was giving an example of in 2008, I believe, he said he had issued a report. It was shocking as to rail safety. None of that was followed up upon, and that's how Mégantic happened a few years later. So we want the Commissioner not simply to be, aesthetic. He wasn't assessing the action plan in the initial version. He did not assess the minister's report in terms of, or his ability to reach a target. So our previous amendments had to do with the action plan, the annual report, the evaluations. That was what was important. But clearly, we do not all think there's a climate emergency to the same extent. So rather So in this case, we're adding one aspect. We're trying to, go a little further, that the commissioner must, during the 2 years preceding each milestone year, and that is really to correct things. If the progression seem to, or the estimates seem to indicate that we won't hit the target, it's a small correction. The previous amendments were, this is still a good correction. If the government, with the support of the NDP, does not really want the commissioner to have a real role, then somebody would need to explain why. Because I discussed it earlier, Member Collins, who was a member of the committee, asked for there to be a study to give the commissioner further powers, further authority, making him or her an independent officer of parliament in the same style as the Auditor General. There may be an opportunity that was kind of missed with Madame Collins, but here we have another opportunity to strengthen that role. I think I'm repeating myself, but I would repeat this. These are facts everyone knows. Canada has never reached those targets, has never met one single target. So with that kind of a level of success, when I know that there are best practices, this legislation has to include some of these measures, and it is the commissioner's role to establish what the failings are, what corrective action should be taken. And here we're strengthening, I think we would be strengthening the commissioner's role, and that's a bare minimum. Thank you, Madame Posey. If BQ 31 is passed, PV 34 cannot be put forward because both amendments have to do with the same line. Mr. Bachrach?
Bachrach? No? Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Mr. Chair, that BQ 31 also has implications for G15, and I believe the introduction of the 2026 emissions objective changes things in those years leading up to 2030. So we prefer the wording of G15. It also impacts, as you mentioned, PV 34. So
Okay.
I'll leave it at that and speak to the next amendment.
Thank you. The vote is called. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Baker,
Opposed.
Mr. Biddle,
Opposed.
Mr. Longfield,
Opposed.
Mr. Samey,
Opposed.
Madam Sachs,
Opposed.
Mr. Albus,
Against?
Mr. Lewis, Ms. McLeod,
Opposed.
Mr. Redekop,
Opposed.
Madam Posey,
En faveur.
In favor.
Mr. Bachrach.
Opposed.
That is 1 in favor, 10 opposed.
So it's defeated. We go now to PV 34. Ms. May?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to Monique Posey for making a number of the points that I'll reiterate here in terms of my briefer amendment. The current form of C12 is that the Commissioner for Environment and Sustainable Development must put forward a report on an examination on the Government of Canada's implementation of measures, et cetera, to achieve its most recent greenhouse gas emissions target, et cetera. The current scheduling of the report from the Commissioner on Environment and Sustainable Development is to be once every 5 years. My amendment would change it to once every 3 years. I'm anticipating the comment, because Mr. Bachrach just made it, that somehow there's some conflict with the upcoming Liberal amendment that the first report must be submitted no later than the end of 2024, referring to the report of the Commissioner for Environment and Sustainable Development. Obviously, there's no conflict. It's a question of the sequencing. So if Mr. Baker's amendment goes through, as unlikely as it is that a government amendment will pass in this committee, but forgive the sarcasm. Once Mr. Baker's amendment goes through, it would mean that the Commissioner for Environment and Sustainable Development will have a report that's due in. The first one would be 2024. The way the Act now works, the next one would be 2029, and so forth. If my amendment is accepted, and I urge you to really consider this, the first report can be in by no later than the end of 2024. The next one would have to be before the end of 2027, which is really rather helpful because under the government's approach to the first milestone year and the advanced reports, the next report would be not from the Commissioner for Environment and Sustainable Development, but from the department to assess how well it's doing to hit its 2030 target. That one will be coming in 2028. So the timing works here. There are no inconsistencies. There are no conflicts. It just makes sure that the Commissioner for Environment and Sustainable Development, bearing in mind that the Commissioner for Environment and Sustainable Development already has a statutory responsibility to report annually on various matters. This would mean that once every 3 years, they would be reporting on climate targets, progress toward climate targets, and the other matters that are set out in Section 24 of C12. So I really do hope against hope that you're going to accept this modest, small improvement to the scheme of the Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. May. Mr. Bachrach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. May, for that explanation. I fear that you may have misinterpreted my earlier remarks. We've always supported an expanded role for the Environment Commissioner within the Environment Commissioner's mandate. So I appreciate you bringing forward this amendment.
The vote is called on PV 34.
Mr. Baker.
Opposed.
Mr. Biddle.
Opposed.
Mr. Longfield.
Opposed.
Mr. Saini.
Opposed.
Ms. Sachs. Opposed. Mr. Albus.
Opposed.
Mr. Lewis.
Against.
Ms. McLeod.
Opposed.
Mr. Bachrach.
In favor.
Hey, Madame.
Oh, sorry. Excuse-moi. Mr. Redekop.
Oh, thank you. I would love to vote against this.
Madame Posey.
En faveur.
In favor?
Still in favor.
Okay. So that is 9 against, 2 in favor, 9 against.
Okay, so the amendment is defeated. We go to G15. Mr. Baker.
Thanks very much, Chair. So I'm pleased to introduce a motion to add a new subsection 24 bracket 4 to the Act. This subsection requires that the first CESD report be submitted by the end of 2024. And basically the rationale for this is this increases accountability between now and 2030.
Okay, Mr. Albus.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question to either of the officials, Ms. Strong or Mr. Moffat. There's nothing in this bill, like in this particular amendment, they're just asking for it to be done at a certain time, the Environment Commissioner to submit a report. But effectively, if I were commissioner, and thank goodness I'm not for all of your sake, but if I was commissioner, I would want to do this right off the bat. I would want to start right away. So does the commissioner not already have the independence to do this already?
Who's that question for, Mr. Hahn or Mr. Moffat?
So the commissioner has a wide range of discretion, absolutely. And as Ms. May observed, does write an annual report on topics of his or her choosing within the confines of the broad mandate. So yes, the commissioner could issue a report in 2023, 2024, 2025. Of course, what this does is makes it absolutely mandatory that the commissioner does so.
Okay, well, it's like if you have a brand new car, you're going to drive it. But I appreciate the answer. The second question, there's no funding in this legislation for that because we've seen criticism drawn to the government because it has not funded the Auditor General sufficiently. So does the C12 give any extra resources so that, because obviously if the minister, or not the minister, if the Environment Commissioner is forced to do this, and like I said, they probably will do it anyway, but that would draw resources from other activities. Is there any money in this?
John, I can answer.
Thanks, Vin. Yes.
So the last time that the Commissioner of Environment and Sustainable Development released their report was 2017. So the next report highly likely will be released between now and 2024. Before the tabling of the bill, Environment and Climate Change Canada has conducted consultation with the Office of the Commissioner of Environment and Sustainable Development, and that they are comfortable with the existing reference levels that they have in continuing to conduct the work. So we have not received any concerns or issues relating to whether their existing resources can support this work or not. So long story short is just to answer to your questions, based on our consultation, there are no red flags.
So actually the question, Mr. Ong, and you were very you should be commended for that. But the question was, is there any additional money in C12 now that the government is making this mandatory by the amendment?
And based on the consultation with the office, there are no additional resources required to discharge this work.
Okay, well that means they're going to have to cut something else because you're making it mandatory. Not you personally, but this amendment. So, but is there any additional monies levied? Because I do know you can write into legislation a particular sum.
So this is your, so Mr. Alvis, I agree where you're coming from. You're concerned about the resources, but that said, if they have not expressed any concerns about using existing reference levels to discharge this, I think this is a hypothetical scenario that you are asking whether additional resources should be given to them through this legislation.
Yeah,
so
well, I'm just worried that something's going to get cut, but I do appreciate you trying to answer the question, although I don't think you did, because as far as I can see, there's nothing written in here outlining that there will be an extra allocation in this legislation. But
yeah, I think you're right. The short answer is no. That the government has not allocated additional money at this time for the CESD to fulfill these roles. You're correct.
Okay. The vote is called on G15. Madam Clerk.
Sorry. Mr. Baker.
In favor.
Mr. Biddle.
In favor.
Mr. Longfield.
In favor.
Mr. Saney.
In favor.
Ms. Sachs.
In favor.
Mr. Albus.
Abstain.
Mr. Lewis.
I abstain.
Ms. McLeod.
Abstain.
Mr. Redekop.
Abstain.
Madam Posey. Madam Posey.
Madam Posey? Yes, 4. I did answer. Did you not hear me? We didn't hear you. Sorry. 4. In favor.
In favor.
So that is 7 in favor, and there are 4 abstentions.
Okay, so it's carried. Shall clause 24 as amended carry? The vote is called.
Mr. Baker.
In favor.
Mr. Biddle.
In favor.
Mr. Longfield.
In favor.
Mr. Saney.
In favor.
Ms. Sachs.
In favor.
Mr. Albus.
Opposed.
Mr. Lewis.
I'm against.
Ms. McLeod.
Opposed.
Mr. Redekop.
Opposed.
Madam Posey.
On est sur l'article 24.
This is still clause 24? As amended, yes. Yes, 4. Monsieur.
In favor.
So that's 7 in favor and 4 against.
Okay, so clause 24 as amended carries. Shall clause 25 carry?
On division.
On division, okay. Anyone object? No, okay. Clause 26, G16, Ms. Sachs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, colleagues. So I'd like to propose to introduce a motion to add a new subsection 26-2 to the Canadian Net Zero Emissions Accountability Act. This motion clarifies that any regulation made by the Governor and Council under the Act must align with the international standards to which Canada adheres. This improves the Act by ensuring that the regulations made under the Act align with Canada's international commitments, something that we've heard much about.
Okay, the vote is called on Amendment G16. Okay, carries on division, no objections. Shall clause 26 carry as amended?
On division.
On division, no objection. Mr. Biddle, well, you have your hand up?
Sorry,
No.
my hand's up for 27.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so so 26 as amended carried on division. We are now on clause 27. Mr. Biddle.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just a minor amendment. We sent the language to the clerk in both official languages, I hope, and she can correct me if I'm incorrect, and hopefully we can send that around.
We have, yeah.
Excellent, excellent. So it clause 27 be amended by replacing line 20 on page 10 with the following line. And I won't read it out, but I'll explain it. The motion removed subsection 7.3 from section 27 and clarifies that the documents produced under the Act are not subject to the Statutory Instruments Act. The Statutory Instruments Act provides for the examination, registration, publication, and parliamentary scrutiny of regulations or other similar instruments, and these requirements are not appropriate for the types of documents produced under the Act. Subsection 7.3 is removed from section...
Oui, oui,
Point of order, please. The interpreter does not have the motion that Mr. Biddle is reading. So if perhaps Mr. Biddle could read it a little slower, that would be much appreciated. Or whatever it is you're saying, if you could go a little slower, says the chair.
Because the interpreters are having trouble.
Sure, I'm happy to go a little slower. I wasn't reading the amendment.
You were just speaking, yeah.
I was just giving the rationale. It's a very brief amendment. I don't know the similarity in French and English, but
Oui, Madame Posé, vous avez l'amendement devant.
Madame Posé, you have the amendment, I think. It was sent around. Mr. Biddle was explaining his amendment. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Biddle, a little slower, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I guess I'll just pick up from where I left off, that subsection 7.3 is removed from section 27 because it changed in the course of our review. Originally, it was referred in the minister's authority to extend the time limit on setting the 2030 target. It was then replaced by Government Motion 3 with a new subsection 7.3 that provides that each greenhouse gas target must be as ambitious as Canada's most recent NDC communicated target under the Paris Agreement. Basically, since the Statutory Instruments Act would not apply in this situation, subsection 7.3 should be removed. Just to clarify, based on amendments we've made before.
Okay, Madame Posé, ensuite Monsieur Albas.
I also have an amendment to add, Mr. Chair, that was just sent to the clerk. It's a sub-amendment to Mr. Biddle's amendment? No. Okay, perhaps we could first deal with Mr. Biddle's amendment. Mr. Albas.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm just going to simply say that this just shows that this process, I've said, has been compressed. The government, in its hurry to make a deal with the NDP, didn't do its homework and now is making these last moment, Hail Mary type passes to be able to make sure that the bill is somewhat functional. This is not a great process, and quite honestly, someone on the government side should be asking questions about, why they can't get, both sides of the equation to equal.
Okay, noted. The vote is called on Mr. Biddle's amendment. Madam Clerk.
Just getting the proper documents open here. So the amendment of Mr. Biddle, Mr. Baker.
In favor.
Mr. Biddle,
In favor.
Mr. Longfield,
In favor.
Mr. Samey,
In favor.
Ms. Sachs,
In favor.
Mr. Albus,
Opposed.
Mr. Lewis,
Opposed.
Ms. McLeod,
Opposed.
Mr. Redekop,
Opposed?
Madame Posey,
En faveur.
Mr. Bacharach.
In favor.
So that's 7 in favor, 4 opposed.
It carries now. Madam Posey, you have an amendment?
Oui.
Yes, I do. I think everyone has received it, Madam Clerk. I'm going to send it in a couple of seconds, says the clerk. One moment, says the chair.
Maintenant, c'est envoyé.
Okay, all sent. Madame Posey, I was told that your amendment actually should not fall under clause 27. It would become a new clause, 27.1. Yes, that's how we have prepared it, 27.1. Yes, but we haven't adopted clause 27 as amended. I think we need to vote on that first, Madame Tivierge? Yes, we would need to go to the vote on clause 27 first, and then we'll go to yours after Madame May's, right? Yes, because we received Madame May's amendment before Madame Posey's. Okay, very well. Let's go to the vote. So, Madam Clerk, on clause 27 as amended. Mr. Albus, you raised your hand?
4, I think.
Oh, no, no, that's not the case, Mr. Chair. Sorry.
Okay, so we're voting on 27 as amended, Madam Chair, Madam Clerk.
On division.
Okay, passes on division as amended. Now we go to PV 35. Ms. May.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think committee members will recall that a number of witnesses, few witnesses we had who spoke to the question of justiciability to make sure that this bill could actually have at least some measures that have accountability. Unfortunately, of course, this was paired with my amendment that would have said the minister must achieve the targets. However, there remain a number of mandatory duties for the minister: must prepare targets, must set milestone years, must take into account as science. So subsections 7, 1, 2, 4 subsection 8, subsection 9, subsections 1 and 2 of 9, all include mandatory duties that could engage an application for judicial review, which is why I'm proposing section 27 sub 1. Again, I think it was West Coast Environmental Law, but it was supported by a number of other organizations that provides some guidance that this legislation does anticipate judicial review of ministerial obligations, and where someone could seek judicial review within the federal court and relief that's available under subsections 18.1 and 18.1.3 of the Federal Courts Act. So I hope the members will find this an amendment that deserves support and can become part of C12. Thank you.
Sorry, I was muted. The vote is called on PV 35. Madam Clerk.
Yes, Mr. Baker.
Opposed.
Mr. Biddle.
Opposed.
Mr. Longfield.
Opposed.
Mr. Saini.
Opposed.
Mr. Sachs. Ms. Sachs, excuse me. It's been a long day.
Okay. It's been a long day for all of us. That's all right. Sorry.
Ms. Sachs on PV 35.
Sorry, 1 second. I've PV 30 opposed. Sorry.
Mr. Albus.
Abstain.
Mr. Lewis.
Abstain.
Ms. McLeod.
Abstain.
Mr. Redekop.
Abstain.
Madam Posey.
En faveur.
Mr. Bachrach.
In favor.
Okay, so that is 5 opposed, 2 in favor, 5 opposed, 4 abstentions.
Okay, so it's defeated, and now we go to Madame Posey's 27.1, proposed 27.1.
Okay, I think you've all received it. So what I'm saying here is that 5 years after the day on which this act comes into force, a comprehensive review of the provisions and operation of the act is to be undertaken by a committee of the Senate or a committee of the House of Commons or of both houses of Parliament that is designated or established by the Senate or the House of Commons or by both houses of Parliament, as the case may be, for that purpose. So the bloc is tabling this last amendment because it is in line with our values, and even though we were in favor of the work linked to this clause-by-clause study, we have expressed due diligence, and I share the opinion of many here, Mr. Bachrach's, Mr. Albus's opinion, Madam May's opinion, which said that if C12 had to be, should have been in committee for longer and more testimonies were needed, because we knew that there were going to be process issues. We knew we were going to receive many different briefs, many different messages. So this amendment isn't exceptional. I think you all know that this topic in this bill is extremely important. What's at stake here is our health, our world, our planet. We are seeing more and more droughts. Farmers in Quebec are worried for their crops, and they're feeding us. So that is very important. So we believe that that comprehensive review is extremely important. The first one would happen in 2026. We would have the report from the commissioner in 2024, then the progress report in 2023, 2025, which would then come and inform the comprehensive review, because we have an emergency before us, and so we have to do better with C12, sure, the reports, but also the bill itself. And I'm going to end by saying that Lord Debord, who is the head of the Climate Change Committee of the United Kingdom, has said, and I quote, "There must be a constant reminder. We have to hammer in what the reality is and underline all the time what the consequences of climate change mean. and what denying climate change would mean and what the negative economic impacts will be that come directly from climate change. Canada has to realize what its behavior and inaction will lead to and what it will mean for other countries in the world. And I would add that every time we fail, Canadians will keep polluting more and more. Thank you, Madame Posé. Let's go to the vote now on amendment, Madame Posé's amendment, which seeks to add a new clause, 27.1.
Well, Mr. Biddle.
Sorry, the translation cut off the sound. Opposed.
Mr. Longfield.
Opposed.
Mr. Samey.
Opposed.
Ms. Sachs. Opposed. Mr. Albus.
Support.
Mr. Lewis.
En favor.
Ms. McLeod.
In favor.
Mr. Redekop.
I'm in favor of this.
Madame Posey.
En faveur.
Mr. Bachrach.
In favor.
Six in, 5 against.
Congratulations, Madame Posey. Okay, so shall clause 28 carry?
On division, Mr. Chair.
Okay, carries on division. Clause 29, PV 36. Ms. May.
Mr. Chair, if in discussing this amendment, anyone from the government side is prepared to explain the way the current law is drafted, I'd appreciate that. But let me just explain what my amendment does. The current language of section 23 is section 29 coming into force it says that section 23 of the Act will only come into force on a date fixed by the governor in council. So the question of why it would be that the aspect of the role of the Minister of Finance and the report of the Minister of Finance, of which much has been made in the way this bill has been promoted, why is that section carved out from the coming into force of the bill? Section 23 would only come into force on under this on the day fixed by order of the Governor Council. We'd like the entire Act to come into force the day after it has received royal assent. Makes it cleaner. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. May. Mr. Albus.
Yeah, just a question to Mr. Ong and Mr. Moffat. Is there anything that specifically would cause issues with this act if this amendment was put in place? Is there anything with time schedules in terms of reporting? I can't think of any, but I'd like to hear it.
So first of all, the sort of as a matter of standard judicial interpretation, the entire act will come into force upon royal assent unless otherwise provided for in the act. So the whole act except for this provision. The reason for this provision, I'm going to defer to my colleague who's been patiently waiting from the Department of Finance, who's been patiently waiting to address questions around this particular provision. Over to Mr. Miller.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. I think what I would say is that this particular provision, section 23 or clause 23 of the bill, it deals with a report related to government operations and risks and opportunities of financial risks and opportunities of government operations. So, in a way, it's a little distinct from the rest of the bill, which deals more broadly with the economy writ large. And so we want to make sure that this report, the logic of the company force is that we want to make sure that this report reflects the very latest in reporting that is currently under development around
financial risks and opportunities. So this clause would just allow the government to take stock of that and make sure that the report is aligned to the maximum extent possible.
Okay, Mr. Miller, and I do appreciate that, but ultimately this creates a bit of a loophole situation where technically the law would be the law of the land, but the government would then get to choose when to start applying it after it does a governor and council saying that it's come into force. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's also a fairly standard element of bills.
Well, governments love to keep discretion. Is what's the old term anyway? But I think that they want to keep that discretion to themselves.
Okay. The vote is called on PV 36. Madam Clerk.
Yes, Mr. Baker.
Opposed.
Mr. Biddle.
Opposed.
Mr. Longfield.
Opposed.
Mr. Saini.
Opposed.
Madam Sachs.
Opposed.
Mr. Albus.
For.
Mr. Lewis.
En favor.
Ms. McLeod.
In favor.
Mr. Redekop.
Support.
Madame Posey.
Je m'abstiens parce que j'ai pas suivi.
I will abstain because I didn't follow. I don't know what article we're on. I'm sorry.
Correct.
Just for clarity, we're voting on PV 36, correct, Madam Clerk?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes, so I'm in opposition and opposed.
Si c'est bon, Monsieur Backrash, merci.
So, Mr. Backrack, thank you for reminding me that we're on PV 36, so I would vote for it if this is possible.
Terminé.
Yes, the vote's not over yet.
5 in favor and 6 against.
Okay, so it is defeated.
Close that time.
Pardon? Sorry?
So we were close that time.
Yeah. It makes it exciting. Just playoff hockey in a way there. Okay, so shall clause 29 carry?
Roll call.
Okay, go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Yes, Mr. Baker.
In favor.
Mr. Biddle.
In favor.
Mr. Longfield.
In favor.
Mr. Saini.
In favor.
Ms. Sachs.
In favor.
Mr. Albus.
Opposed.
Mr. Lewis.
Against.
Ms. McLeod.
Opposed.
Mr. Redekop.
No.
Madame Posey.
En faveur.
Mr. Backrash.
In favor.
So that is 7 in favor, 4 against.
So it's adopted. Now, the committee will remember that we agreed to postpone the study of Clause 2. We are now ready to go back to Clause 2. The amendments that were submitted in relation to Clause 2 start on page 1 of the package with BQ1. Madame Posey.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I have been previously informed that my amendments on the preamble would not be in order, and I wanted to save you the time and others and just ask that when it comes to that, because I am called to other business in the House,
okay,
that you withdraw my amendment. And
that's 37, right?
Yes.
Is that your last amendment?
Yes.
Okay. Is there, do we have unanimous consent? I believe we do. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And it's not, we.
Just one moment. Mr. Chair?
M'excuse, Monsieur le Président, j'avais levé la main.
Oui, mais
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I had to put my hand up, but...
allez-y.
Go ahead, Madame Posey. Please go ahead. So this is for BQ1? Is this what you're talking about? No. That's why I put my hand up before then. It was to inform the clerk that I'm leaving the puck to Madame Michaud, but given it's the last time I'm going to be speaking about the bill, I'll just say something briefly. Thank you. There's at least one block amendment that was accepted, but I think Canada is making choices that are of concern concerning in this bill that has no teeth, and we're ignoring what economic experts are saying more and more frequently, that it doesn't make sense. We have to act. We're in a situation of climate emergency. Is this not part of the state's role to protect the common good? And are we going to be able to get through this challenge of climate change? Will we impose this to the next generations by just attributing a symbolic importance to this? So I think the Bloc Québécois really kept its word in the climate responsibility. We filed Bill C-15, which was rejected. We really worked for the common good, for greater transparency, greater democracy, more rigor, more accountability. And the votes that I took for the Bloc Québécois did not have the effect of improving this bill. So we just remained very true to ourselves. So the elements that were required for a true bill on climate change are not there. I'm concerned for the population, for Canada, for the future, for my children, because Canadians are going to continue to heat up the planet. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Madame Posé, and congratulations on the adoption of your amendment. Madame Michaud, BQ1. Mr. Chair, sorry, I don't yet had the whip's form telling me that Madame Michaud was substituted. So if we don't have that, Madame Posé, you're going to have to present BQ1. You're supposed to have received it, Madame Clerk. Madame Posé can present the amendment. Yes, please, because we're really getting to the end. Madam Clerk, could you please let us know as soon as you've received the form for Madame Michaud? So, Madame Posé, BQ1. Yes, well, I'll read it. Maybe it will give Madam Clerk the time to receive the substitution. So we want to give a definition to the word commissioner. The commissioner of the Environment and Sustainable Development appointed under subsection 15.1 of the Auditor General Act. So we want to give a definition because we do refer to the commissioner in the act. So it's important to define who we're talking about. Yes, thank you. We'll call the vote. Madam Clerk, can we vote on BQ1?
Madame Lagaffière, oui.
Oui, Mr. Baker?
Opposed.
Mr. Biddle?
Opposed.
Mr. Longfield?
Opposed.
Mr. Saini? Oops, Mr. Saini. Yeah.
Opposed.
Madam Sachs?
Opposed.
Mr. Albus?
Against.
Mr. Lewis?
I vote against.
Ms. McLeod?
Opposed.
Mr. Redekop?
Opposed.
Madam?
En faveur.
Mr. Bachrach?
Opposed.
Sorry? Mr.
Opposed.
Bachrach?
You said he's opposed.
Sorry, my mic dropped down somehow.
Thank you. So that's 1 in favor and 10 opposed.
Okay, so it's defeated. G1, Ms. Sachs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, colleagues, for all hanging in there. So, Mr. Chair, I'm pleased to introduce a motion to amend Section 2 of the Act. This motion adds the definition Indigenous knowledge, which means Indigenous knowledge of the Indigenous peoples of Canada. Other motions propose that Indigenous knowledge be considered at various stages in planning and reporting on our progress to net zero. This motion provides a definition for that term wherever it is used throughout the Act.
Okay, thank you. Ms. McLeod?
Thank you, Chair. And again, I do want to note the lack that we heard from officials in terms of this government talks about the UN declaration. You know, appears to be very symbolic. There was no conversation. There was no Indigenous witnesses. Of course, there was some brief. So, I think it's to throw in terms at this stage where they don't have, appropriate testimony, although it's important. I do want to highlight the complete lack of consultation in spite of the words to the contrary. Thank you.
Thank you. The vote on G1 is called. Madam Clerk?
Yes. Mr. Baker,
In favor.
Mr. Biddle,
In favor.
Mr. Longfield,
In favor.
Mr. Saney,
In favor.
Miss Sachs,
In favor.
Mr. Albus,
Abstain.
Mr. Lewis,
I abstain.
Ms. McLeod,
Abstain.
Mr. Redekop,
Abstain.
Madame Posey,
En faveur.
Mr. Bacharach.
In favor.
So that is 7 in favor and 4 abstentions.
Thank you. It's carried. So PV1 and BQ2, this ruling that I'm making at this moment applies to PV1 and BQ2 as they are identical. The amendment seeks to make a substantive modification to add the year 2025 as a milestone year in the interpretation clause. As House of Commons Procedure and Practice 3rd edition states on page 773, quote, the interpretation clause of a bill is not the place to propose a substantive amendment to a bill unless other amendments have been adopted that would warrant amendments to the interpretation clause. In addition, an amendment to the interpretation clause of a bill that was referred to a committee after second reading must always relate to the bill and may neither exceed the scope of nor be contrary to the principle of the bill. So in my opinion, the proposed amendment is a substantive amendment to the interpretation clause. And since no amendment to the bill has been adopted to justify amending the definition of milestone year, I rule PV1 inadmissible and and BQ2 as well at the same time. Ms. McLeod, is your hand up or is it from before? Okay, I have clerk co-host number 2 with the hand up as
Yes, I just want to confirm that Madame Michaud has been substituted in now.
Okay, thank you. So that's my ruling on those 2. And that takes us to BQ3, and it would be Madame Michaud.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it's not complicated here. We're just in definitions. So we wanted to define the Paris Accord, given that the Act refers to it. And it was important for us because we're referring to it in the case of attaining the 2030 targets. And so it's just to give a definition of the Paris Agreement. Thank you, Madame Michaud. We'll call the question on BQ3.
Mr. Baker.
Opposed.
Mr. Biddle.
Opposed.
Mr. Longfield.
Opposed.
Mr. Saney.
Opposed.
Madam Sachs.
Opposed.
Mr. Albus.
Opposed.
Mr. Lewis.
Opposed.
Ms. McLeod.
Opposed.
Mr. Redekop.
Opposed.
Madame Michaud.
En faveur.
And Mr. Bacharach.
Opposed.
So that is 1 opposed.
So BQ3 is defeated. Shall clause 2 carry? The vote is called.
Mr. Chair, as amended.
As amended. Thank you, Madame Tivierge. I don't know what I do without our legislative clerks.
On division.
Okay, it's adopted on division. Carried division. Okay, so now we go to the preamble. The committee will study the preamble. The amendments proposed to the preamble start on page 112. So we go back to PV 37, but unfortunately, PV 37 is inadmissible as no amendment to the bill to justify amending the preamble has been adopted.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yes, sorry to interrupt. I believe it was withdrawn by.
It was also
by
withdrawn. I even wrote that on PV 37, Madame Tiviage. I even wrote that, and I didn't see that. Didn't see my own handwriting. Thank you for mentioning that. Okay, so we go now to G17. Mr. Baker.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. So I'm pleased to introduce a motion to add a new paragraph to the preamble of the Act. This paragraph states that the Government of Canada has international and national climate change reporting obligations, and that it wishes to improve transparency and accountability by increasing domestic reporting obligations. This motion situates the planning and reporting obligations introduced by this Act in the broader ecosystem of domestic and international obligations to plan and report on our progress in addressing climate change.
Thank you. The vote is called on G17.
Vision.
Madame Michaud has her hand up.
Well, the vote was called. Was her hand up before I called the vote?
I'll let her be heard. It's probably a better thing to have person heard.
Madame Michaud, rapidement, s'il vous plaît.
Madame Michaud, quickly, please, because we did call the vote. Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry I got to the hand a bit slowly. So I wanted to say it's good that we're talking on the Convention on Climate Change, because we wanted to have 45% reduction of greenhouse gases and did not keep its promise. So it's we will want to define this in the preamble. I would have voted against this amendment because we wanted to have a true target there. Yes, quickly. But the only time the Bloc Québécois voted against an amendment, the minister held it against us at question period at the House of Commons, so I find that deplorable. So I'm going to take a moment to see how I'm going to vote here, but I find it really deplorable that we have a target which doesn't exist here.
17.
Yes, so Mr. Baker.
In favor.
Mr. Biddle.
In favor.
Mr. Longfield.
In favor.
Mr. Saini.
In favor.
Ms. Sachs.
In favor.
Mr. Albus.
Opposed.
Mr. Lewis.
Vote against.
Ms. Opposed. Redekop.
No.
Madame Michaud.
Contre.
And Mr. Bachrach.
In favor.
So that is 6 in favor and 5 against.
So it's carried. NDP 8, Mr. Bachrach.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to have to find it here in my list because my.
Would you like me to read it?
Sure, that would be helpful. In the
that Bill C12, Bill C12 in the preamble be amended by replacing line 6 on page 2 with the following, quote, change, comma, including by taking Indigenous knowledge into account when carrying out the purposes of this act, unquote, semicolon, unquote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's fairly self-explanatory. This is, to recognize the importance of Indigenous knowledge being taken into account, as the amendment states.
Yeah, no, you're right. So can we? Can we? I'm calling the vote. So, Madam Clerk.
Yes, just one moment, sir.
Unless somebody wants to propose that it passes on division. Nobody does. Okay.
Okay. So, Mr. Baker.
In favor.
Mr. Biddle.
In favor.
Mr. Longfield.
In favor.
Mr. Saini.
In favor.
Madam Sachs.
In favor.
Mr. Albus.
Favor.
Mr. Lewis.
In favor.
Ms. McLeod.
In favor.
Mr. Redekop.
I'm for this.
Ms. Michaud. Madame Michaud, excuse.
Oh.
And Mr. Bachrach.
In favor.
That's 11 yeas and no nays.
Okay, thank you. We go to NDP 9. Go ahead, Mr. Bachrach.
So this amendment inserts the following wording: whereas Parliament recognizes that it is the responsibility of the present generation to minimize impacts of climate change on future generations. And I believe this is an incredibly important insertion into the bill to clearly state why we are undertaking this important work.
Thank you. I've been advised by the clerks that it's inadmissible as no amendment to the bill to justify amending the preamble has been adopted. The amendment seeks to make a substantive modification by adding to the preamble that, quote, Parliament recognizes that it is the responsibility of the present generation to minimize impacts of climate change on future generations, an element which does not appear in the bill. So I, unfortunately, while it's a good sentiment, I have to rule it inadmissible. NDP 10, Mr. Back, okay, NDP.
Well, Mr. Chair, I don't know.
I ruled it inadmissible. I mean, you can challenge this if you'd like.
Okay, I won't challenge it at this time.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. It's an, as I say, it's a nice sentiment. Unfortunately, I can't accept it based on the advice of the legislative clerks. But you still have the floor for NDP 10.
Moving on to NDP 10. So this is to insert the words "and ambitious action" in the sentence, which reads, whereas climate change is a global problem that requires immediate and ambitious action by all governments in Canada, as well as by industry, non-governmental organizations, and individual Canadians. And similar to one of our previous amendments, this is to emphasize the need for ambition in conducting this work.
The vote is called. Madam Clerk.
On division.
On division, okay. So it's adopted on division. No objections to that. Okay. Shall the preamble carry?
On division.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Sorry, just preamble as amended.
Yes. What do we do without our legislative clerk as amended? Sorry.
I'll try again. As amended now. Yes, on division.
On division. Okay. Shall the title carry?
On division.
On division. Sorry, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Shall the short title carry? On division?
On division.
Shall the title carry? On division.
On division.
Shall the bill as amended carry?
On division.
Shall the chair report the bill as amended to the House?
Yes. On division.
On division. Shall the committee order a reprint of the bill as amended for the use of the House at report stage?
Sure.
You mean on division, you mean?
On division.
Okay, got it. Colleagues, this has been a great accomplishment. I know that not everything was the object of consensus, but this, I congratulate and thank all the members and the witnesses and the clerk and the legislative clerks who allowed us to get this bill through committee clause by clause. So thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there anything else we need to do before we adjourn?
No.
So do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you again, colleagues. Have a good evening. What's left of it. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.